Chapter 21 Mr. Divination Master. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Bam! The demon Beelzebub had been smashed into the wall like a common fly. And right off the bat, everyone, including the demons, knew that things hadn't gone according to script. Soon, their eyes fell onto the teenager standing before Hayden. And just when they were still guessing his origin, they soon heard another person exclaim loudly. "It's you." Audience. Who? Hayden, who just opened his eyes, as well as Minato and the rest, were utterly shocked and happy when they saw the young man before them. Thinking about the warnings this guy had given them, he had definitely seen their fate today and warned them thoroughly, but they didn't heed his advice. Thankfully, Mr. Divination Master here had a good heart, or he might not have bothered to come and save them at all. As if seeing the light, they crawled towards him like babies. Dorian was too lazy to care about their actions. A good heart. Well, whatever they wanted to call it, he didn't care. Very abruptly, he turned towards his men who were struggling to act tough with their wobbly feet. It looks like they had finally grasped the real essence of the Tian family's main source of income. Butler Sheng. Biwo. Haru. Do you remember the papers I gave you earlier on? Yes, young master. The trio answered in confusion. What do the papers have to do with the demons before them? Dorian squinted his eyes at the angered demons before sternly looking at his guards again. Listen. We don't have much time left, so here's what I need you to do. Sha, 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 eh. Hayden, who was right behind them, didn't understand the language they were speaking. Why? Because Dorian had cast a spell on things, lest the demons hear him as well. And in no more than 40 seconds, the gang broke off, with Dorian slowly advancing with his hands in his pockets. He turned around one last time to look at his men. This is your first task that I, the current head, is giving you. So don't fail me. Hearing this, the trio shivered uncontrollably as a strange aura hit them. Was that coming from their master? That's right. Now, he was the head. So the title master was in order. As for his father in a coma, they could call him senior master or anything else if they wished. But he was the one now selected on the Tian family throne. The trio shook from his aura as they hastened their speed. Maybe it was just their imagination, but their intuition told them that their master was a more frightening existence than these demons. But how could that be? They shuddered and threw the thought away, feeling it was impossible. For now, they had to do their assignments, even if they were scared to the bones. Nonetheless, they knew that with their master here, they wouldn't die so easily. With that, the trio moved in different directions while sending their hands into their inner chest pockets. They would like to see what these things called paper talismans could do. Dorian, on the other hand, kept his hands in his pockets while advancing towards the humongous creatures that were 3 times taller and wider than he was. And soon, his eyes settled on the fog around the invisible walls. Energy manipulation fog. System, when's the heavenly hour in this world? Host. It's between 3-4 a.m. The system has to remind the host that no souls must be tempered with. So the host has to save everyone. I know. Then if the host knows, why didn't this system see when the host implemented it into his plans when talking to his guards? That's because you're blind and stupid. The system had never been so bullied before. In truth, because Dorian had only briefly told his men what to do but didn't say what would happen when they did it, the system was left in a state of confusion. Dorian, on the other hand, forgot about his dumb system and looked at the fog around calmly. Energy manipulation fog. Oh. It looked like these people hadn't come to play around. To understand energy manipulation, one must first understand that all mortals and beasts have certain amounts of either yin or yang in them. The yin is the dark side, associated with everything hard, negative, cold and bad, while the yang is the bright side with positive things, like the sun. And of course, demons loved the een. That said, the young part in mortals always disturbed the demons ruthlessly when they absorbed the soul. It was like they had to check into a hospital to heal themselves. And the stronger or more the yang is in the soul, the former the disturbance after feasting. It was a basic fact that anything angels liked couldn't be beneficial for demons. After all, the yang itself was a manifestation of heavenly blessings. So, typically, they could do what they did with Hayden's group. Like give them all sorts of spiritual herbs and cast a spell on them, making them tastier for the meal. It was like preparing food to be cooked. And in the case of those gang members who hadn't been prepared, the fog would manipulate their energies and was even more brutal. Since it drew out yang at a naked-eye pace, leaving them with mostly yin, making the victims paler and paler, with some looking bluish instead. Some might even be crippled or fall into a coma after that. When too much yin got left within a person, it meant that they would start attracting all misfortunes in this world. They could just be walking by a building, and it would collapse on them, with only them dying. And the more hate they carry because of their misfortunes, the more yin would accumulate in them. It was a never-ending cycle. And wouldn't you know it? Demons love this sort of energy the most. The demons looked at Dorian coldly while feeling insulted. Katrina was spitting flames when she thought of Dorian's calmness before them. She had never heard of an exorcist in this world. So she was shocked by his presence here. Nonetheless, the talisman he used to sneak attack Beelzebub was too weak. So he should be a new exorcist. This alone gave her and the other demons courage to deal with him. They looked at Dorian and sneered. Once done here, they'll send word to their big boss about today's encounter. But for now, they had to teach this wannabe exorcist the lesson of his life. The old granny demon shook her insect-like claws in resentment. Insolent human. Do you think you can take us down with just this level of skills? We are Bortho-ranked demons. So your only option is death. Feeling tired of listening to their pointless jabber, Dorian calmly took his hands out from his pockets before suddenly speeding up expressionlessly. Why talk when you can fight? Boom. The battle was on. Chapter 22 Newbie Exorcist. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Boom. A defending noise echoed out, and before the demon granny knew it, her enormous right hand had been completely destroyed, turning it into mush. Ah! She exclaimed in both pain and rage as she saw mushy bits and pieces of her rotting demonic hand scattered around. The other demons who thought Granny Demon would be enough to take care of the exorcist, were shocked to see the damage she received. What was this? How come this move was stronger than the previous one? Could it be that this guy wasn't a newbie exorcist? They looked at each other for a bit more, before the demon Conrad, who was the old guy with the beach-looking sandals and shorts, calmly stepped forward and wasted no time taking action. To him, Dorian had just been lucky earlier when he sneak-attacked Granny Demon while she spoke. What a despicable trick. Not that he was mad at it. To them as demons, sneak attacks were acceptable. So to him, Dorian's luck had now been completely drained. Thinking like this, Conrad was even bolder than ever. Tap. 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 He speeded up for a bit before jumping in the air with his wings flapping around. Exorcist brat. Why don't you taste my acid bursts? Dorian squinted his eyes and rolled to the side as a load of hot, white acid fluid sprayed out of Conrad's mouth. Bah! Shah! The floor sizzled, creating hot bubbles on the black melting ground. This fact alone made the hearts of those watching skip a bit. They started shaking and grabbing each other while watching in fear, as there were times that the fluid could have touched Dorian. Oh my God! Their little hearts can't take this much, okay? Countless people bit their nails while watching Dorian rolling and running, avoiding acid shots here and there. Was he going to be alright? The people worried about him because to them, it looked like he would lose pretty soon. But unbeknownst to them, the protagonist hadn't even broken a sweat at all. Dorian's eyes gleamed with a murderous light as he leaped into the air, making his way towards Kalrad, who in turn threw more acid at him. Bah! 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 Swoosh! 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 Dorian gracefully dodged it all, moving from side to side. And as before Kalrad could blink, Dorian had already thrown a talisman paper at him again. Bam! The mighty Kalrad crashed into the ground with a massive hole in his belly. Kalrad was in agony when he realized that one of his hearts had been destroyed. Instantly, the expressions of the other demons turned grim. They were done playing with this exorcist. Beelzebub bared his fangs at the Dorian coldly. Everyone, attack together. I don't believe he will be able to drop us all. The other demons nodded before elongating their claws and fangs. This guy was truly courting death, and they didn't mind giving it to him. Tap. 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 Like lightning, they speeded up to their target murderously. And when they were close enough to him, their faces showed a crazed victorious expression as they stretched their claws all at once. Bastard! Don't blame us for being cruel. How dare you stand in our way? Die, exorcist! Die! Su! The air whistled as the many demon hands descended onto their prey. And at this moment, time seemed to have frozen up. Dorian lifted his head and grinned. Swish! He vanished. Bam! What? Where did he go? Their hands slammed onto the empty field rather than their targets, which made their faces ashen. What was this they were feeling? What was this fear? Dorian had long jumped high in the air, took out a talisman paper and activated it. And just then, something magical happened. WSH. The small paper glowed a strange blue light, almost as if it were bluish flames. Dorian then passed 2 fingers past the paper, before elongating his hand towards his left. And as his hands moved, a bluish flaming image of a sword seemed to have been formed from the paper. The system who saw this was surprised. Wasn't this the holy exorcist sword technique? Wasn't that the sword flame of erosion skill? How could its host do it at his level? Brrr. The flames burned violently on the transparent sword as Dorian gripped it in satisfaction. All this happened in a split second, and by the time the demons realized that they hadn't squashed or ripped apart their prey, Dorian was ready to begin his reign of chaos. Where the hell is he? Where the hell did he go? The demons looked left and right but didn't see his figure anywhere. But of course, they didn't have to wait for too long because in the next second, Dorian descended from above, landing right at their center. He brandished his flaming sword with a cold smile on his face. Let's begin, shall we? The demons looked at Dorian's sword and couldn't help taking a step back in horror. This can't be. No. Why would this appear in this world? They looked at Dorian's mysterious smile, as well eyes that seemed like a bottomless pit, and a stab of panic in their gut. No. They had to get out of here. They had to get out of here now. Those in the audience watching this were even more baffled and confused when they saw the demons scattering away. Was it just them, or did it seem like those demons were running for their lives? They couldn't help staring at Dorian with an unfathomable gaze. A man that could make demons flee. What sort of person was he? The demons on the other hand, were prepared to make a run for it. Katrina looked at the injured Granny grimly. Who is he? Since when did exorcists like this exist in this world? Granny Demon couldn't go nodding sternly. I know. This is bad. We have to tell the Lord Bortho fast. His presence might destroy the ultimate plan. No matter what. This world must be ours. Yes. We have to tell Lord Bortho. Only he can communicate with the bigger and higher-ranked lords of the underworld. The Demon King has to be made aware of this. But now, we have to escape, fast. The demons who had made up their minds to flee, suddenly found themselves on the ground instead. Tongue. They smashed into a pinkish wall, or rather, a formation of sorts. That's right. When Dorian had vanished into the air, he casually threw a few stones around which seemed like nothing. But in fact, he had been training these people here all along. How could he let his exorcist points run away like this? He thought his first kill would be ghosts or even lower entities that would give him a few points to rank up. But his luck was truly good. And he came across newly named demons. The points were high. Dorian looked at them scattering around and gave a low but eerie laugh. Ha ha ha. And where do you think you're going? Come now. The fun has just begun. So why the rush? Every demon's face turned solemn and pale when they felt Dorian's full aura released. From then on, those who were watching the show couldn't describe their mood. They couldn't feel anything from Dorian and couldn't hear whatever was said there. All they could do was watch the most gruesome show they had ever seen, with Dorian cruelly playing with the demons, giving them hell. That it was ironic because the demons were already from hell, yet it looked like Dorian was the real monster instead. And it was at this moment that everyone subconsciously came to one conclusion. No matter what happens in the future, they must never provoke this man. The system that was of the same opinion as the group of humans, also shivered as well. What the hell kind of host had he contracted? Slash. Bam. Boom. Slash. Ah. The pitiful demons cowered in fear the closer the devil before them approached. Why that you are not normal? Monster. Devil. Devil. Dorian looked at them expressionlessly and moved his sword once more. Devil. Sorry. I'm just one extraordinary exorcist. Slash. Chapter 23 Their roles. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Slash. 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 Everyone watched the scene in shock, but no one had any sympathy for these demons. What a joke. These creatures wanted to suck their souls out a few minutes ago, preventing them from judgment and reincarnation. They didn't even know that these things were true until today. So hearing that this would be their last life and last trace of existence if they get devoured, how could they not be happy that something was teaching these creatures a lesson? In the meantime, as Dorian continued his beat down, his men were also focused on their assignments too. To understand their roles, one has to rewind back to the scene where the trio separated from Dorian. The main demons had not been beaten yet, and the fight was still about to start. Haru, Biwo, and Butler Shing shakingly took out a few talisman papers in their pockets. The trio shook like leaves but could only grit their teeth and look at each other firmly. Biwo. Stay safe. The others. Right. With this, the trio began their first tasks as no.rank exorcists. He once again looked at the master, who was still rushing up to fight the demons, and clenched his fists as if pulling strength to himself. Tonight had been filled with all too many surprises. But there was a sentence the master said that gave him and the others a clue of what was about to come. What did the master mean? Were the demons trying to take over? This was a question he would personally ask the master later. He felt like things weren't as simple as they seemed. But whatever the case, they had to fight if they wanted to survive. With that, Haru dashed through the densely packed crowd, heading towards the now foggy wall as fast he could. The master said he had to act fast before it began. He had no idea what it was, but he had a bad feeling from it all. And just as he began his run, the foggy walls soon began swirling around the walls enclosing them, like a tornado. It swirled and swirled until its milky white color quickly turned black, and just then, the thick demonic vines fiercely grabbed everyone's legs, slowly moving them in like quicksand. Only, it took its time sinking them in. But that wasn't all. Just then, the dark fog stopped swirling, and everyone, except him and the other two, now lifted their heads upwards like mindless zombies. And what happened next shocked Haru silly. Boom! Countless warm golden streaks of light shot out of everyone's bodies, moving straight to the dark fog. And as the light continuously left them, their bodies became paler and paler, looking so sickly. Haru's eyes turned grim. It was beginning. Haru, who had been running, fell straight on his chin. Plop! He turned around to find that the disgusting demonic vines had grabbed his legs like a snake, slowly wrapping his feet. Damn it! It got him. He was angry for a moment before getting shocked. Hold on. Why wasn't the golden light thing leaving his body? Looking around, he spotted Butler Sheng and Buo, who had been grabbed but were still fine as well. And very quickly, the light switches in his head clicked. Master. Yes. The master must have put some protective thing on them. But he had no time to feel happy. Time was running out, and these vines were only pulling him in two. What to do? What to do? The vines are too thick to be cut with a blade or by gunshots. No. This is something out of the ordinary. So his usual methods wouldn't work. Haru thought for a while before remembering Dorian's words. Right pocket, for battles. Left pocket, for the wall. Wait. When the master said battle, he meant situations like this, right? Thinking like that, Haru quickly took out one of the papers from his inner right pocket and looked at it carefully. What writing was this? No, it was more like very bizarre and unique symbols, runes, written in several circular patterns across the paper. He had no idea what it meant, but he was willing to test his luck. With that, he gritted his teeth and fiercely stamped the paper on the snake-like vine that had curled itself around his feet. Bam! Shra! The vine cried in agony as blue flames from the paper scorched it mercilessly. Degree 0 degree, Haru opened his mouth in shock and wonder. I'll go. That tiny paper did this. Haru's heart speeded up as his hands quickly touched his pockets. Oh my God! Has he been walking with gold this whole time? Yes. To him, such a thing was akin to gold. Haru almost had the mind to count the paper talismans with him again, just to be sure that he didn't lose any one of them. He felt from today onwards, he wouldn't be able to sleep well at night without them. And now, even though he was still scared, it wasn't as bad as earlier on. A slight smile appeared on his face as he hastily dashed forward after being freed. At the same time, Butler Sheng and Buo had also seen the potential of these papers. Now, they had more courage to do their job. Tap. Tap. Tap, the trio ran in different directions, all heading towards the massive foggy wall. And as they ran, they did their best to jump, roll, climb, and dodge all the vines coming at them non-stop. In the beginning, they ended up getting caught severely, but their trusty talismans were always there to their rescue. They also noticed that their training as bodyguards was vigorously tested here since they imagined the vines to be numerous assassins coming at them from all angles. But even at that, they had to admit that fighting these vines was way more complex than fighting humans. The reason why these monstrous vines did indeed have the upper hand, was because unlike humans, these monstrous vines could appear right below them or at unnatural positions that humans couldn't reach. One shouldn't even mention the flexibility of these vines. And the more they advanced, the more they noticed that these vines were trying to grab their hands instead. That's right. If their hands were held down, how would they continue throwing talisman papers? Instantly, they understood that these monsters could think. But they were not about to lose after getting this far. Chapter 24: A Foggy Reversal. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Haru's eyes were determined as he ran through the fields towards the foggy walls, very a little bit more confident. Yes. With his papers, he should be okay, no. Swish. Swish. He jumped, ducked and did all sorts of movements to get past the sneaky vines and come this far. And soon, he was just a few inches away from his goal. But of course, how could it be that easy? Grip. Grip. What? His hands had been seized by two separate vines. Haru looked at the wall just a few fingertips away with unwillingness. He was so close. Scree. Scree. As if jubilating, the vines began singing in overly high deafening sounds that could make one's ears vibrate in pain. Haru distorted his face as the ringing in his ears was a little bit too much to bear. These vines seemed to be either happy or mocking Haru instead. Either way, he had to do something fast. Luckily, the moment he understood that these vines could think, he did start making his own unique backup or plan B, like they, as bodyguards always do. Sorry. Old habits die hard. Rumble rumble rumble, the ground underneath him trembled slightly, and Haru instantly knew that another set of vines would probably reach for his legs soon. So if he had to act fast. With that, Haru quickly did a backward somersault while pushing the hidden paper he kept around his sleeves towards his hands. Thrup. Like a magician, the cards on both sides of his sleeves were in his hands. Success. Scree-hee. The vines were so shocked and they ended up getting burnt by the blue flame. How could this be? Heh. The now free Haru couldn't help thanking his former self for learning card tricks. He liked card tricks and could make cards appear on his hands with the flick of his wrists out of thin air to others, but the trick was that he typically kept it in his sleeves. And today, he felt proud. Remembering how the other guards would tease him, saying it was lame. Heh. Who's lame now? Okay. Okay. He admitted that he got lucky. Yup. He was lucky that the vines had gripped him around his lower arm rather than his wrists. Or now, no matter what he did, he wouldn't be able to escape. With his newly gained freedom, Haru dared not waste time anymore and quickly pressed the talisman paper on the walls. The master said he should place all 12 of them in 4 columns close to each other, according to the order given to him. Haru knew that the vines wouldn't give up this easily, so he began pasting the papers on the foggy walls just as he was told. And from time to time, he would turn around to destroy any vines coming his way. Pa! 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 He placed the papers fiercely in 4 columns as requested and realized that all 12 pieces combined now formed a massive circle with those strange symbols. And within the massive circle were other smaller circles of symbols as well. Pa! The moment he placed the last paper, the entire set started glowing. Haru watched as the glowing paper seemed to cause the fog around the wall to move in the opposite direction to the way it spun earlier on. Looking at it, Haru had a deep thought in his mind. Could it be that this was to reverse the situation? Butler Sheng and Biwo, who had completed their own tasks on the wall before Haru, had long noticed this as well. Whoosh! 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 The fog began spinning like crazy in the opposite direction. And soon, a massive light shot out from Haru's set of talismans, going towards the directions of Butler Sheng and Biwo. Likewise, the other papers with the duo did the same thing as well. And now, there was a giant triangle of light formed by these 3 sets. But this was just the beginning. Whoosh! 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 The fog changed from black to its original milky white appearance. And while transforming, the golden streaks of light that had been stolen from everyone returned to them. The dazed zombies spread their hands open and started trembling while absorbing it all in. Yes. The bony, pale, mindless zombies started looking youthful again. Their skin tone returned from that pale bluish tone earlier on, and their bone-like cheekbones had now begun filling up at a visible rate. Again, even though the crowd stayed like zombies, if one had paid attention to their eyes earlier, they could have seen true despair in them, but now, their eyes started getting warmer and warmer instead. It was simple. When these people had their young drawn out, they soon found themselves trapped in horrifying dreams filled with negative energy. The dreams seemed so real that they forgot they were still in the fields. Some found themselves as children who were beaten, locked up, tortured, stabbed and even crippled. But the most daunting thing was always psychological pain. The fears deep in their hearts took root. And those who were orphans got to meet their dream-like parents who kept abandoning them, selling them, or showing them the darkest parts of humanity. Some ended up crippled and got betrayed by their parents, girlfriends or anyone they truly loved. And the more young got drawn out, the more helpless they were. Of course, they could only persist for so long because they still had young in them, which was still being drawn out. Typically, the moment they gave up meant that their blackening rate was completely 100%, with them having no ray of sunshine or hope in their lives. It also meant that all their young was gone, leaving only yin behind. The darkness clouded them before the reversal. But now, things changed. Chapter 25 Goodbye Demons. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Everyone had been in a state of hell, but once the reversal occurred, that's how they felt earlier on. But with this reversal, the story turned different. Their dream experiences became different. As they became saved, justice returned to them, and several things occurred that reminded them of the good in life. And once their young got fully returned, they woke up from their dreams, crying and sweating buckets. They were saved. Plop. Several dropped to the ground in disbelief. I'm alive. Ha 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 ha. I'm alive. Bro, did you have the same dream I had? Bro. I don't think so. Trust me. No one could have gone through what I just went through. Do you see how much I'm sweating? Lying trough. I thought it was all real. Wait. So. It was all fake. Of course it was fake. Look around you, we are still in that field. Yes. We must have been kept in that dream by those demons. I think the only reason we came back was because of the guy fighting the big demons and the other guys fighting those other creatures. Look. The vines are no more. Do you think that they destroyed them? Yes. They definitely did it. So do we help them? Some wanted to do so, but the moment they saw the demons, they still felt like throwing up and shivered in fear like chickens. Everyone sneakily looked at their four heroes and felt like these people were too courageous. Even now, they dared not look straight at these demons lest they catch the eyes of one. So how can these people be comfortable looming and fighting them? I'll go. So there are really crazy people in this world. Degree 0 degree, everyone watched the scene and felt like they were watching some fantasy movie. Of course, little did they know that Haru's team could only face their fears because they knew that Dorian was there. Not to talk of the fact that they had their trusty papers with them. Without this much, they would have also been cowardly as well. And they weren't ashamed to say it. After all, this was their first battle and first time, all right. Slash. Brum. Pa. Slash. Dorian squinted his eyes at Haru and the rest before turning his attention back at the painful demons before him. System. With the grade of demons here, the mastery of skills, and several other key factors. How close am I to leaving my no-rank exorcist title? In fact, leaving the no-rank wasn't that hard. If one couldn't pass this simple stage, as well as mastering the fundamentals, spells and even breaking through their mortal shell through cultivation, then they had no place being exorcists. The real challenge came once this easy phase passed. Dorian continued torturing these demons while waiting for the system's reply. Host. As you said, the demons here were higher and gave more points than the typical weak spirits and ghosts. So far, with this kill and display, the host had only reached 95% to leave the no-rank title. Good. Time to end this. With that, Dorian smiled cruelly at the almost mutilated demons, who in turn shivered in fear with greenish tears in their eyes. Don't worry. I'll make this quick. With that, Dorian raised his flaming sword, and the entire space within his tiny formation became clouded. Looking at the space, no one knew what he was doing, but it made the audience shiver as well. This guy was definitely a scary one. Meanwhile, Haru and his team had somehow gone through the formation and found themselves outside the now clear walls. That's right, the walls weren't foggy anymore. And what were they doing out there, fighting the other bodyguard demons that came with the main demons? Yes. They focused on fighting these demons half their size. But make no mistake. Although short, these demons were high, flexible jumpers and had a lot of hidden strength within them. So far, they had gone scratched and hit badly. This was their first battle against real demons, and they were doing terribly. Haru limped in agony as he dodged an attack but got scratched by one of the short demons. F*******. It hurt so badly. All they had to do was make sure that the teeth of these demons didn't touch them. At least that's what their master said from that far away. Yup. They didn't know if it was their imagination, but they heard Dorian's voice from afar. And that's what they did. Luckily for them, Dorian, who had finished his battle, effortlessly wiped the remaining demons with the flick of his wrists. Krayaha. The remaining demons screamed, screeched and went up in flames as Dorian and the injured trio watched coldly. Good. It was finally over. After all, he had a lot of things to do. For one, he still had an academy to open. No. Chapter 26 The Aftermath. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Dorian looked at his injured men and chuckled. Fun. The trio looked at their wounds before looking at Dorian and grimacing helplessly. Do they look like they had fun? Sigh. They had so many questions to ask. Nonetheless, they now knew one thing for sure. Their Tian family specialized in the supernatural. Meanwhile, everyone touched themselves with trembling hands when they realized that it was finally over. My God! Tonight, they almost had their souls devoured, which was the scariest thing they had ever encountered in their lives. As if affected by the essence of victory, the group of people finally understood that no more demons would appear again tonight. Their lips quivered and quickly widened as they felt good to be alive. We're free. We're free. We're free. Ha 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 ha. Oh. Mother. I miss my mother. F******. Never again will I come to this Waffle Mountain. Bro, I'm with you on this one. I would rather shoot myself than climb up here and face what we saw today. Can't you see that my clothes are still soaked from before? Heh. If someone told me that the grown me would wet myself like this, I would have definitely beaten them silly. Never again will I come here. Bro, for me, I might have trust issues forever. Seeing those demons walking around in human form made me realize that anyone could be a demon. Ah. This is true. So what do we do? Amidst the joy of escaping their near-death experience, many were now scared at the fact that they were living with such creatures around them. I'll go. How do they know who is real and who isn't? Many couldn't help shaking in disgust and fear when they thought of how those good-looking people from before turned into indescribable rotting creatures that made them puke. Mommy. This world is too scary. Many had already decided never to step foot on the mountain, thinking it was the sleeping ground for these demons. Today, everyone looked as if they had aged 10 years more than their actual ages. Plop. Minato and Yanbua slumped to the ground and rubbed their fingers across the already dead grass. They survived. The duo stared at it for a while in fear before that fear turned to unwillingness instead. Looking at Hayden, Terzo and Lulu, they twisted their mouths and stared coldly at them without flinching. After realizing that things like demons existed, and going through this sort of experience, trust me, they weren't that afraid of Hayden's group anymore. Yes. There was still fear in them, but it wasn't as bad as earlier, where they always kept their heads down and never made eye contact. No. This time, they looked at the trio who had dragged them into this situation. They built up the courage and stared at Hayden's gang with both hatred and a little fear. Hayden. We will no longer be a part of your nonsense. Why? Yeah, because of you three we almost lost our lives here. Greed. It's your greediness that caused this all. Shut up. Minato and Yanwa swallowed their words when Hayden lashed out. Hayden looked at them and felt like punching them silly. What? They think they were the only ones who faced life and death. Talking to him and playing the blame game in a time like this was what anyone would hate. Honestly, that's jinxing 101 for how people died in horror movies. Earlier on, he was just a few inches away from Beeldemad's claws before getting saved, so do they know how chaotic his mind was now? He was truly scared to the bone. That's why for the next month or so, he wanted to assess his life, and for that, he needed peace. As for disbanding his gang, he would never do so. Actually, now was the time that they should stick together. He wasn't even sure he could be alone in the dark anymore. The same went for the others too. Their hearts drummed loudly, and every little whistle from the wind caused them to jump like cats. Now they kept wondering. If demons existed, then did that mean that ghosts were real too? Everyone now had little thoughts of their own, voicing their main issues here and there. But the moment they saw their four heroes headed towards them, the entire field turned silent. For these people, they had a sort of fawning look in their eyes when gazing at them, as if they were looking at peerless masters in the famous Xianxia novels. They looked at these people deeply, as if wanting to burn their images into their minds, while perking up their ears to listen in. Standing behind Dorian, the injured, Haru, Butler Sheng and Biwo, maintained a calm expression on their face. After defeating the demons, the master searched for several smooth-looking rocks and calmly carved something on them with his blade. What astonished them the most was how the rocks seemed to turn soft in the master's hands, as he carved symbols on them as if carving a bar of soap. And when he was done, he tapped the stones, and the carvings glowed bright yellow before fading. Now, the stone just looked ordinary, with a few cravings on it. The trio secretly took note of this in their hearts and silently watched Dorian do his thing. Dorian knew they had a lot of questions, but all would be answered in due time. With that, Dorian smiled and continued carving. And he was done. The gang moved towards the crowd with their master ahead of them. It was time to round things up and head back home. It was just that looking ahead, they couldn't help frowning a bit. What do they do with the choppers? Chapter 27 Heading Back Home. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Looking at the crowd, Dorian stood expressionlessly. You may all leave. As for you five, if you want to live past today, take these talismans and keep with you at all times. Thup. Thup. Lost and confused, Hayden, Terzo, Lulu, Yanwa and Minato grabbed the stones thrown at them and looked at them in fear. Will they still have things coming after them? Everyone else looked at all five in pity. Their thoughts were similar to what the five guessed. It looks like several things would be after them, right? All five couldn't believe it. Why? Why? Their eyes widened, almost jumping out of their sockets as they held the stones in their trembling hands. Lulu, who had been quiet since then, had the largest reaction now. After going through all she did, how could she still be chased by these things? No way. Mr. Divination Master, what exactly is wrong with us? Dorian looked at them lazily. Unlike everyone else, you five ate the herbs provided to you earlier on during your first sets of bets. You also performed the spells and rituals, dancing according to the ritual. And in your current state, you'll only attract unwanted attention to yourself. To put it simply, you've become attractive to ghosts, ghouls and the rest. And, your smell has become delicious too. Understand? Lulu and the rest were dumbfounded. Delicious. Attractive. So all that time, they had been performing rituals. F asterisk asterisk asterisk. Dorian flicked his wrists, and a few cards flew their way. Wear those for 5 days, before coming to this address at 10 a.m. sharp. Why? They asked. Because the demons you met weren't that high in rank and only gave you low-ranking spells, undoing the damage done won't cost much. Each of you needs to pay 2,000 vins. That's the price. Hayden and the rest were shocked. They thought they might have to pay millions, but who knew that it would be way less than they imagined. The average salaryman here gets 30,000 vins a year. So even though it was a little pricey, it was still okay, compared to paying millions that they estimated in their minds. The gang of 5 squeezed the stones fearfully before tucking them away like treasures. Everyone nodded, and that was that. They were free to go, but it was just that they were still a little scared to head into the woods. In truth, they just wanted to stay close to the gang of heroes for protection. But who would have known that their heroes would have other plans? Everyone watched as Dorian's gang moved towards all 5 choppers. Gary and the rest were also a little disturbed about leaving these choppers here. Okay, supernatural aside, if the police found these choppers abandoned here, coupled with the missing demons, they would start thinking that someone murdered the demons for money or something. And even though the young master had clean traces of their blood and everything else, what about the others? They were sure that at least one gangster left trails of themselves either on their way here or within the forest while hiding. And detectives could pick up the littlest bit of evidence for testing. The trouble here was that in this massive frightened group, one blabbermouth might begin telling the truth. Typically, one should tell the truth. But the police wouldn't believe in it and might then pick up on the fact that they too were here. From there, they'll start searching for them with description alone, blah, blah, blah. Things like that. Actually, Dorian wasn't worried about this. To him, if someone wanted proof of underworld creatures, he could show them. So what was there to be worried about? But because of Haru and the rest, he had no choice but to deal with the matter. Haru and the rest simply didn't want the police chasing, following or disturbing them. That's why something had to be done about these choppers. Sadly, none of them knew how to fly them. So they were particularly curious to see how the young master would handle things. And as expected, he didn't disappoint them. Dorian looked at the choppers thoughtfully before taking out several papers and speedily twisting them into similar shapes. And once he was done, he tapped it and squinted his eyes at them. Go. Durr. Like magic, the paper man suddenly moved on their own and jumped off Dorian's hands, making those watching freeze. But that wasn't all. They watched the tiny papers arch and grow 10 times or more in size, reaching the shape of a regular person. Degree_degree, blink. Blink. Sigh. Forget it. Why are they shocked now? Their entire worldview had been completely shattered long ago. So if one just told them that dogs could fly, they would also believe it as well. Haru and the rest were excited rather than surprised. So does this mean that in future, they would be able to do this too? Awesome. Everyone watched as the faceless, white, chubby paper men walked like robots and headed towards the choppers, taking the pilot seats calmly. So these things would fly the choppers. Butlers Sheng, Haru, and Biwo first felt uneasy trusting their lives to papers while several feet up in the air. But after seeing Dorian's calm expression, they felt their thoughts to be ridiculous. They had already been through hell tonight. So what was there to be afraid of? All 4 entered the same chopper with Haru seated by paper man right up front. It was really astonishing to watch a mere paper start preparing for take off. Paper, bro. Do you speak? Paper man, PFFFF Butler Sheng and Biwo laughed as the chopper ascended into the air. Dorian, who had his arms over his chest and his eyes shut, couldn't help smiling too. Well, he had to admit that he liked his new team better than his last. Chapter 28 Who Did It? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Brew, 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 brew. The crowd watched the choppers vanish right before their very eyes with unwillingness in their eyes. They would have very much liked to go down the mountain with that divination master. And just when they were still thinking about it, a warning noise echoed out, reminding them of their predicaments. Oh wow! Everyone's eyes dilated in fear. Were those wolves showing from miles away? Without wasting time, everyone hastily dashed into the woods as if running a marathon. Get out of the way. I'm getting out of here before it's too late. Cut. Hey. Who are you pushing? I also want to leave as well. Me too. I want to get home. Din, 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 din. Everyone ran like crazy in fear while looking over their shoulders from time to time. In horror movies, it was the last group of people that always ended up getting picked one by one. So no matter how tired they were, they continuously ran as fast as possible to avoid being last. Luckily, they were descending Waffle Mountain, so compared to the long hours it took to hike up, things went very fast when running down. And just like that, things could be said to have been finally concluded. Like so, time flew by. And the chopper carrying Dorian landed in a secluded area around the woods at the bottom of the Waffle Mountain. Thup. They jumped off stealthily, and the paper dot man quickly took off again. Dorian squinted his eyes deeply. He was still weak. Had it been before, his paper dot men could have been able to stay alive like puppets for months and months. Noel Duran, but now, he was finding it hard to keep them for several hours. This was too weak. They had to destroy the choppers before they were completely drained, and they had to do it far away from this region. Luckily, there was a river across the other side of the city. They should be able to make it just in time before shrinking back to their original forms. With that, Dorian's group walked away from the mountain and headed to the hotel, where they deliberately booked a single room just to park the limo. Earlier on, they purposefully found a high-end hotel before taking a cab to set up the shed. Now, stepping back into the hotel again, they checked out, got their limo and took off. And the moment they arrived at the estate, Butler Sheng opened the door for Dorian. Pop. Master. We have arrived. Dorian opened his eyes and stepped out calmly. And as he walked, Butler Sheng took off his coat. Haru walked beside him silently, while Biwo went to park the vehicle. And after Biwo was done, he met with them in the house. Everyone stood before their master nervously. Tonight. You all have seen what my Tian family is all about. Remember. You have only this week to think of your final answer. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything for you. The job we do is brutal, dangerous and life-threatening. To put it simply, the monsters you met today were nothing, and the real ones are still in hiding. As Dorian spoke, the expressions on their faces grew paler by the second. But they quickly shook off the emotions and steadied themselves again. Yes. They were frightened. But the only way to win is to grow stronger. They wanted to be Tian family members, and this would not change. A flash of satisfaction flicked through Dorian's eyes when he saw their subtle actions. A firm heart was what he needed. And highly loyal people typically had such qualities. Almost all the servants and guards might have deserted his family, but he preferred it that way. The ones who did remain were the perfect candidates for the job. What my Tian family does is dangerous and takes a lot of hard work. But it's also rewarding and fulfilling. So, should you choose to stay as members of my Tian family, then this is what you have to go through. Biwo, Butler Sheng and Haru clenched their fists in determination before going down on bended knees. Master. We don't want to wait till the end of the week. We already thought about it earlier on, and we are willing. Dorian nodded. All right. Get up. I accept you all as official members of my Tion family. On hearing this, everyone jumped up, forgetting the pain from their many injuries. Thank you, Master. Dorian looked at their wounds deeply. Today, you three performed well, given that this was your first time on the job. That said, there were too many areas and flaws in your executions that could have cost you three your lives. Fortunately, this is just the beginning. In future, I will guide you on what to do and study. Thank you, Master. All right. As per your injuries, we have no herbs for fast recovery. Fortunately, I already cleansed all traces of demonic blood and toxins in you. So for tonight, treat your injuries like any regular wounds and rest. Because tomorrow, the real work begins. Now go. Yes, Master. With that, Dorian ascended the majestic stairs, leaving the trio below. Everything seemed to have come to an end, but very far away in another city, an overly handsome man in wealthy night robes quickly opened his eyes swiftly. His long eyelashes fluttered briefly, like a prince awakening from slumber. And after getting up, he calmly walked towards the massive window expressionlessly. It's been a long time since someone annoyed him. In truth, he didn't think anyone would dare. Oh. He didn't mind playing for a while. After all, he was getting a little bored recently. But now, it looked like someone was trying to push his buttons. So why not have a little fun? The question now was, who killed them? The man squinted his eyes playfully. Interesting. Whoosh. In a flash, he was gone. Chapter 29 Help. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Like so, the first battle had been won, drawing unwanted attention from a few. And while some people cried and jubilated about their miraculous survival in fortunate circumstances, the same couldn't be said for others. Gudu Grand Estate. Welcome back, young master. Butler Windok said while calmly grabbing several items from the playful good-looking youth who just stepped in. This estate belonged to the second son of the renowned Gu family. The main ancestral home was just within another side of town. But this one strictly belonged to Master Gudu and his family. And at present, Master Gudu and Mistress had flown to another city for a private event, leaving young Master Soda alone to do as he pleased. Thus, for the last 5 days, the young man had been staying out with his friends at exclusive clubs and attending all sorts of events too. Well, he was always with his guards. So his parents didn't think anything bad would happen to him. It was just that today, the young master had returned home way earlier than he said he would. And coupled with his uneasy expression, Butler Windok couldn't help but frown. He also had his part in keeping an eye on the young master, reporting everything to the master. So he had to find out if something happened while the young master was out. Or could it be that the young master was still on set about his RUN.IN with that gloomy Tane boy? That's right. He got the scoop from the guards and knew all about their little RUN.IN. It was just that he was curious about what Dorian whispered into Soda's ears. Because ever since then, the young master hadn't been as cheerful all day. But tonight, it seemed even worse than it was in the day. So what happened? Young Master Soda. The mistress and master called earlier on to say that they'll be arriving back first thing this morning. Icham. Goose Soda replied absent mindedly while shivering and looking around fearfully. Seeing him like this only further confirmed Windok's suspicions. Something was definitely wrong with the young master. He wanted to silently investigate things, but Soda's actions were too drastic. He had never seen the young master this frightened before. Windok squinted his eyes thoughtfully while walking beside the absent-minded Soda. Young master, is anything the matter? Tap. 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 Soda's footsteps slowed down before coming to a standstill altogether. Listening to Windok, Soda's heart skipped a beat before he hastily turned to Windock as if wanting to say something. But then, he shook his head again in fear and shrank back in denial. Nothing. 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 I'm just a little tired, Windock. Tired. Windock didn't believe it for 1 second. As a highly trained butler, how could Windock not see the fear in his young master's eyes? Not to talk of Soda's constant trembles and dodgy behavior. Looking at him, no skilled person would be able to take his actions for tiredness. Young Master Soda. You are Master Do and the madam's heir and pride. So if anything is bothering you, you only have to say the word, and it shall be taken care of. No one should cause you any discomfort. So young Master Soda, are you sure that there's nothing on your mind? Once again shaking his head, Soda quickly picked up his face, dashing up the stairs in denial. Windock. I said nothing is bothering me. So just let me be. Windock, who had been left behind at the foot of the grand stairway, could only watch Soda make a run for it with countless deep thoughts in his mind. Typically, if he asked things like this, the young master wouldn't hesitate to talk and dish out orders on teaching his enemies a lesson. But today, the young master actually fled, not even giving him a chance to talk. All right. It looks like he would have to dig out more information about tonight's events. He had to have his facts ready before the master and madam got back. Thinking like this, he calmly instructed the maids to prepare a light pallet of food and water for the young master. While he, on the other hand, went to find the guards. He had a daunting suspicion that whatever was troubling young Master Soda would have something to do with what that gloomy Tian master whispered into his ears earlier on. So what could it be? What did he say to get the young master all sweaty and fearful? Tonight was bound to be a long night for him. And of course, the same could be said for Soda as well. Bam! Soda slammed his door hard and quickly clapped his hands twice, activating the lights. From there, he wasted no time in getting onto his massive bed while shivering like a chicken. He didn't even change his clothes and could only hide underneath his blanket with his eyes deeply shut. One would think that he was too tired and had already fallen into a deep slumber. But his trembling body and his waking mind suggested otherwise. Call it intuition, but ever since Soda met with Dorian, he had become more aware of the changes in his body. He noticed how weak and tired he always was, as well as how pale his skin grew day by day. The change wasn't very noticeable, but to him who looked at himself in the mirror daily, he knew exactly what had changed. But the most horrifying thing was tonight's matter. Yes. While out with his friends, he went to the VIP washrooms for a bit. And after relieving himself, he tilted down to wash his hands. But when he looked back up, the image in the mirror made him fly backwards in horror. No. No. That wasn't him. The image in the mirror that smiled unnaturally wasn't him. Of course, the noise he caused alerted a few others outside. And when they came in, his reflection in the mirror returned to what it should have been. Soda's mind went blank as he finally understood why he had been having a bad feeling for several days now. Yes. Something had been following him. But who should he tell? If he said anything, wouldn't they think him mad and lock him up in a mental institution? He shut his eyes tightly, wishing his fear away. But suddenly, the lights began to flicker. Drew. Soda's chest tightened. Help. Chapter 30. The Culprit. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Drew. The lights flickered, and Soda's entire body froze. Help. He placed his trembling hands over his mouth and kept his eyes slightly shut in prayer. He didn't know who he was praying to, but his first reflex was to pray. Suddenly, the estate dogs began barking like crazy, as if possessed. Hoof. 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 The guards outside didn't understand what was going on as the dogs began barking and trying to get out of their chains. They even tried biting the guards and calling their attention immediately. The Gu family dogs were in panic. What's wrong with them? Butler Windoc's eyes turned cold. It's an enemy. An enemy has entered the estate. Quickly. Get security to check through the surveillance cameras. I'll go check up on the young master. Good. With that, Windoc, who was within a faraway corner of the estate, dashed through the fields as fast as he could while holding a walkie-talkie in his hands. Unlike other Maine butlers, Windoc was also the head of security in charge of all men under Master Godot. He was indeed an amazing butler. But he was also proficient in hacking, assassinating and countless other things. Thus, he was the one calling the shots. He had been out doing his final rounds, checking that every place around the estate was safe and tightly locked. It was then that he passed by the dog pins and found them barking at the top of their lungs. Windoc wasted no time in leaping through the massive estate like a killer who had locked onto his target. Maybe this was the enemy that young Master Soda feared. But who was it? What assassin or killer dared to enter their noble Go family? Damn it. He was careless. Butler Windoc quickly alerted a few guards in the main building to check up on the young master and wait for his arrival. Whoever it was, better be ready to feel his wrath. Young master, help is on the way. Meanwhile, as everyone was now on the move around the estate, Soda, who was clueless about it all, was further sinking into what he thought was hell second by second. In a heartbeat, the air in his room became overly chilly, spreading its cold claws deep into his body. And even with his eyes closed, he could tell that the cold breath he was releasing was now misty and foggy. The hands shook with uncontrollable tremors as a rare wave of panic thundered within him. And soon, his heart sank deeper. Click. What was that? Soda's hand pressed hard against his mouth in horror. Click. There it was again. As if undergoing torture, Soda vigorously tried to stop his clamoring teeth, hoping not to draw attention to himself. Click. What was that? What was that? Soda thought long and hard before realizing where he heard those sounds before. Shouldn't that be the sound of the bolts on his windows? Click. The last bolt came undone, and Soda's entire jaw tensed up. Shoo, the window had risen and fallen ever so gently as if fearing to be damaged. Its slow opening and closing only made Soda want to have a heart attack. Mommy. Soda's body went cold. But it turned even icier when he heard the sounds of strange sounds heading his way. Kosh. Kosh. Kosh, the light but eerie sounds slowly inched their way closer, like footsteps, taking one time at a time leisurely. And as the sounds grew louder, the sounds of his dressers creaking, as well as other unexplainable sounds, echoed throughout his mind as if reminding him of his impending doom. Soon, the footsteps stopped right before his bed, and he felt something leaning closer and closer to him. F*******. Soda tightened his eyes so much that if it were possible, they would have already been swallowed and forced into his body. His belly fluttered in fear as sweat quickly filled his clammy hands. It's not real. It's not real. It's just a bad dream. It's nothing more than a bad dream. Soda murmured non-stop, trying to convince himself that it would all go away after waking up from his dream. And surprisingly, it seemed to be the case. Because in the next moment, the flickered lights returned to normal, and the screeching sounds within the room stopped. Soda still kept his eyes shut for 2 whole minutes but didn't hear anything or felt any threat at all. And surprisingly, the dog seemed to stop barking as well. He opened his eyes and was met with no threats at all. Could it be that he had been having waking nightmares? Was it more of a bad dream? Soda was now confused. And suddenly, he heard the voices of the guards outside his door. Young master, please open up. We suspect that an enemy might be nearby. So open up, or we will storm in. Hm. Soda heard this and was taken aback. Well, that would explain why the dogs were barking like that earlier on. Well, science had explained and proven that such things and imaginations were possible when having waking nightmares with patients screaming and pawing around. So, Soda was a little more convinced that it was just a bad waking dream. However, in the next second, the lights flickered again, returning the room to darkness. Drew Soda froze. But it wasn't the flickering lights that had made him stop. It was what he saw. Windock, who had just arrived, heard Soda's screams and anxiously pushed his way forward. "What the hell are you all waiting for? Break it down now." Bam. 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 Boom. "Young master. Young master. Young master." Windock and the test vigilantly entered the room only to see Soda on the floor with his knees up to his chest while trembling in horror. The light in his eyes seemed to have disappeared, as he looked like a lifeless puppet at this moment. Windock saw this and only felt rage. Soda was like family to him, as he had practically been with the young master since the child turned 6. So who was it? He held Soda and smashed the floor with his fists hard. Boom. All right. Someone wanted to bring out the beast in him. And he didn't mind letting them see it. Dare to come into his territory, then he would like to see who would have the last laugh. The men searched the place non-stop while Windock calmly placed Soda on the bed. He wanted to leave, but Soda gripped him hard in fear before finally falling to sleep. But his last words were what piqued Windock's interest. Dorian Tion. Dorian Tion. Dorian Tion. Him again. Ha 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 ha. Good. 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 How bold. Windock's murderous aura flowed out before turning to his top men and women beside him. The master and madam are returning early this morning. So for now, we prepare for their arrival, as well as check surveillance footage and everything else. But whether we have proof or not, I don't care. That runt is involved somehow. That's why after the master arrives, all forces will move in towards the Tion estate. I don't care what methods you use, but Dorian Tion must be brought in without failure. The brat must pay.